For all the best tips and strategies, check out the Ultimate Utility app. Links are available in the description. Welcome to episode 8 of my Special Ops Challenge Guide series. Today's episode covers the heavily requested Chimp Warfare Challenge. Damage an enemy with 4 different weapons without killing them. So based on the description alone, most people assume this to be one of the hardest Special Ops challenges out there. However, if you know exactly what counts for this challenge, as well as a few special tactics, it makes completing this challenge a breeze. I completed this challenge over 20 times, so don't let anyone tell you that this is impossible or too hard. You'll see the Chimp Warfare Challenge Complete notification pop up several times throughout this video. I accomplished this by resetting my game every time I completed the challenge, so that it wouldn't count. I also used 2 other accounts I had at my disposal. So first, let's cover what exactly counts for this challenge. Obviously, one method is to shoot an enemy with your primary, your secondary, and then scavenge 2 weapons off the ground. This of course is next to impossible to pull off, as more than likely your enemy will kill you, or someone else will kill the enemy you're attempting this on. Luckily, other things count as weapons in this game, including all lethals as well as tacticals. And with this knowledge, you can simply equip a primary, a secondary, a lethal, and a tactical, and be able to complete this challenge without having to pick up any weapons off the ground. So what about weapons with dual modalities, such as the Type 2 or the RPR Evo? As it turns out, one of the mission team challenges is to kill enemies with 3 different weapons. So watch here as I first get a kill with the SMG mode on the RPR Evo. It clearly registers towards this mission team challenge. On the next enemy, I swap to the assault rifle mode and then I get a kill, and this also registers. So to me, this indicates that these count as separate weapons. However, as I said earlier, I tested this challenge extensively, and unfortunately, these dual weapons don't count towards the Chimp Warfare Challenge. Watch here as I run into this AFK player in free-for-all. I hit him with a jammer grenade, then the SMG, then my pistol, and then I swap back to my RPR and turn it into assault rifle mode and hit him again. That's 4 hits total, and I don't get rewarded the challenge. Now as for the jammer grenade itself, as long as the enemy is caught in the blast effect, it'll count as a hit. You don't have to direct impact them, just ensure they get affected by the stun itself. One other thing to note before I get into the tactics is that this challenge can persist through your death. So you can die repeatedly, but the enemy can't. Just to prove this, watch here as I hit the enemy with a stun grenade, but then whiff completely with my C4. I then tap him with my primary as well as my secondary weapon, but then I die. So I've hit this guy with 3 different weapons so far. The only thing I missed with was my C4. Then I respawn and I make my way back to the same flag and take up the same hiding spot. Surprisingly, the enemy stayed alive the entire time, and then he comes back to challenge the flag. So I stun him again, and then I manage to hit him with my C4. As you can see, I'm rewarded the challenge complete, despite having died in the process. So now let's get into a class setup. The loadout here is simple. Equip any primary and secondary you wish, preferably the ones with the lowest damage, such as the Type 2 and the Kendall 44. If you don't have these unlocked, just go with the next weakest option. Remember, the goal isn't to kill the enemy with these. Next, you'll want 2 jammer grenades. For a lethal, you'll want the cluster grenade. In perk 1, you need dexterity, and this is simply for the ability to swap weapons faster. In perk 2, it's tack resist. You'll see shortly that this is invaluable. For perk 3, I highly suggest gung ho. Being able to sprint while holding a prepped grenade helps immensely for this challenge. That should leave you with 1 single point left. I normally just put on a sight for my primary, but any attachment would work as well. The goal here is simple. You want to stun an enemy with your jammer grenade, pop him once with your primary, swap to your secondary and pop him once with this as well, and then use your cluster grenade on him. The reason I recommended 2 jammer grenades is that the stun effect of the first will wear off by the time you get done with your pistol shot. Now with that said, the ideal scenario is to stun him, 1 shot from the primary, 1 shot from the secondary, stun him again, and then finish him off with the cluster grenade. Now some of you may be asking, why the cluster grenade? Every other guide on YouTube has you using the flechette grenade, and in a different order. Upon thoroughly testing, I found that you can actually complete this challenge by killing the enemy with your last item, depending on what it is. So watch here as I demonstrate the game where I discovered my findings. It's in free-for-all, and I spot an enemy with his back to me. I stun him, one shot with my primary, one shot with my secondary, stun him again, and then I actually missed with the cluster grenade. And here I thought I was screwed. But after it blew up and killed him, I was rewarded with the challenge. Knowing this can make the challenge exponentially easier. After you stun the enemy for the second time, you've got ample opportunity to cook the grenade to its fullest and then toss it in their face. Not only does this cold cock them into oblivion, but you'll get the challenge done as well. Now for some reason, this only works with the cluster grenade, which is why I recommended it. I tested every lethal item in the game and couldn't replicate the results of having the final item kill the enemy and get the challenge complete. Now the other option is what I call the bonk technique. The strategy itself is identical up until the end. So again, you stun them, one shot with the primary, one shot with the secondary, then stun them again, but this time, simply walk up and direct impact them with the lethal item of your choice. As soon as it connects with them, you'll be rewarded with the challenge. Now for this one, almost all lethals work. In this clip here, I use the C4 and smack it off the back of his head for the fourth weapon, and thus get the challenge complete. Now I said almost all lethals work because I couldn't get the tar grenade to work. Watch here as I clearly hit this enemy with the jammer grenade, then my primary, secondary, and then instantly stick him with the tar. That should have been 4 weapons, yet I was rewarded no challenge. I should note that this bonk technique sometimes doesn't work. It seems to be a bit glitchy. I've got a few clips here where I clearly hit the enemy with 3 weapons and then bonk them for the 4th and final, but I don't get the challenge complete. I did everything the same and made sure I didn't miss any shots, but no dice. And by the way, if you've never bonked someone to death before, they go flying. It's absolutely awesome to watch someone get bonked upside the head and fly as if a mother-trucking Thor hammer struck them. So I also went the extra mile and tested all the rig payloads to see if any of those registered towards this challenge. Unfortunately, most of them didn't. You can see here that I clearly hit this guy with a stun, my primary and secondary, and then I activate the equalizer payload and kill him. But it didn't reward me with the challenge. There was, however, one rig payload that did work, and that's Warfighters Claw. Again, just to prove I'm not making this up, you can see here that I stun this guy, get my primary shot off, then a secondary, activate my claw, and then kill him, and the challenge complete pops up. This obviously isn't very practical due to not having the claw at your disposal each and every time you spawn, like you would with a lethal grenade. But it could be handy in a pinch. One thing I wanted to point out was just how fast this challenge complete notification pops up. Many of you may have accidentally completed this challenge and not even realized it. So I engaged this enemy, stunned him, then I activated reactive armor and popped him with my primary and secondary. Then somehow I managed to direct impact him with my cluster grenade before I die. Did you see the challenge complete though? I definitely didn't, but watch here as I slow the footage down. You can see the Chimp Warfare logo pop up for quite literally half a second, and that's it. You can just make out the CH in the word chimp, so talk about a fast notification. Now the last thing I wanted to cover were game modes and fails. You'll need a bit of patience if you want to complete this challenge. As you should have seen by now, it's not difficult at all, but you need the right scenario to make it even easier. I tested most game modes available, and I definitely found some to be more ideal than others. For example, in Team Deathmatch, I struggled with teammates stealing my kill. I'd normally hit an enemy with 3 out of the 4 required weapons, only to see some willy-wankin' wiswag come in and gank my kill. Now domination can definitely be feasible. You'd be surprised at just how oblivious enemies can be. If you lay low and camp your dick off near a flag, enemies will often run right by you without a second glance. Watch here as an enemy runs right by where I'm prone at. I trail him briefly before unloading with my stun, my primary, secondary, and finally a prepped cluster grenade to his face. It doesn't get much easier than that. And that's the ideal position you'll want, the enemy with his back to you. Overall though, I found the best game mode to be free-for-all. You can easily hide in a corner somewhere and wait for an enemy to waltz by, unsuspecting. You won't have teammates to gank your kills either, although it does still happen from time to time due to other enemies, but nowhere as frequently as in Team Deathmatch. Don't forget to use standard gameplay elements to your advantage as well. For example, when an enemy calls in a Scarab or a Thor, his body will remain motionless until he comes out of it. That's an ideal scenario to complete this challenge. Another example is when an enemy calls in a drone package. He'll be focused on capturing the contents, leaving him wide open for a little Chimp Warfare surprise. Lastly, don't be afraid to lobby shop for some newbie boobies. I actually got an incredible scenario captured on video that I couldn't resist showcasing here. So as I was sitting in this lobby for free-for-all to attempt this challenge, I was scouting out the enemy KD ratios. Going down the list, I couldn't help but notice this guy had a .241 ratio. Now I'm gonna be honest here, this is dreadful. My 3-year-old son has a higher KD than this in Infinite Warfare, no joke. His is 0.4, so this person is arguably worse than a 3-year-old, which makes him an ideal target to complete this challenge. So knowing this, I memorized his name, which was Cougar Nation, with the intent to find him in the upcoming match. And right off the bat, he's one of the first guys I encounter. Not only this, his back is to me. Now unfortunately, I got a little too excited and blew my load early on him. I accidentally killed him. If we fast forward a bit in the same game, with me in the same spot, he appears again. This time he spots me and ultimately kills me. But look at his aim though. You can tell why he has a .241 KD ratio. Towards the end of the game, and again with me in the exact same spot, he appears once again. Patience is key here, remember. This time, the wait pays off. His newbie boobiness is far too overwhelming to escape my tactics, and he succumbs to the Chimp Warfare. So don't be afraid to look for your own Cougar Nation out there. A few of these players can be found every so often. One last tip here. Remember when I suggested Tac Resist and Gung Ho? Both of those are extremely valuable. You'll often be in close quarters with your enemy when you use the jammer grenade to stun them, and without Tac Resist, you'll end up stunning yourself in the process. Likewise, the entire technique I've outlined starts with utilizing the jammer grenade. If you have Gung Ho equipped, you can freely roam around the map with the prepped grenade. Without it, you won't be able to run and you'll move at a snail's pace. And that, as they say, is that. I've showcased completing this challenge several times throughout the video utilizing many different tactics. Ideally, the most effective is a jammer grenade stun, a primary weapon hit, a secondary weapon hit, another stun, and then a prepped cluster grenade to the face. The tactics I've outlined in this video should help even the noobiest of boobies complete this challenge.